Last time, I broke down some of Boaster's gameplay and the real reasons behind why he always bought frags. It's only natural to talk about Boaster's North American counterpart. FNS is one of the most accomplished IGLs in Valorant history, and is hailed as one of the smartest tactical minds to this day. However, he has long been criticized for having bad mechanics and poor individual performances.
Okay, what the Wait, why am I being disrespected like this?
Just like Boaster, FNS seems to have the IGL curse, but to what extent is his IGLing actually getting in the way? And are his mechanics as bad as they really seem? In this video, we're going to uncover the truth behind why FNS consistently ends up at the bottom of the leaderboard. We're also going to talk about what FNS and NRG can reasonably do to not only improve his individual performance, but the team's entire ceiling as a whole. So stay tuned until the end.
Don't miss, Sean. Whatever happens, do not miss.
You bet! I knew it!
FNS has been delivering some of the best whiffs since the beginning of Pro Valorant. But at some point, you've got to wonder why this happens so often and how it actually affects his team's ability to win. Let's start by looking at some of his best and worst clips to understand the limits of his mechanics and aim. Just like everyone else, FNS has his moments of brilliance and disappointment. But in both his good and bad clips, we can see certain tendencies start to stand out in regards to his aim. It's easy to tell from his whiffs that he doesn't have great aim discipline, which results in a lot of missed first shots. This is a common aiming problem, but what exactly is going wrong here? Pay close attention to his micro adjustments in these clips. He doesn't have great control of his small movements, but it also looks like he flicks to his target and shoots immediately without making a conscious effort to confirm if his target is really in his crosshair. When he misses the first shot, he often falls back to his spray downs, which he relies on in a lot of different situations, whereas other players will focus more on their first shot and make readjustments to reset their aim instead of spraying. Technically speaking, FNS's sprays look very, very good. He knows exactly how to work in and out of crouching to vary his movement. However, the issue is that spraying in Valorant doesn't guarantee efficient or consistent usage of your gun in most situations. In my opinion, FNS's shooting style is simply a result of his prior habits from Counter-Strike. You can see that a lot of popular top Counter-Strike clips, at least at the time when FNS played, were huge spray down multi-kills. The first shot was obviously still very important, but spraying was a much more reliable mechanic in CS than it is in Valorant, because CS has consistent spray patterns. I remember seeing this Stewie 2K clip when he was still competing in Valorant, and also thinking that the way he took fights really resembled CS gunplay. Compare this to the gunplay of top Valorant players throughout history, and you can start to see a difference start to emerge, especially as time's gone on and Valorant mechanics continue to develop and separate itself from CS. Even though FNS has been playing Valorant for the last 4 years, he really developed his TAC FPS habits from playing CS for more than 10 years prior, which is certainly something you can't shake off so easily. This isn't to say that CS players only know how to spray, because there are lots of them that made the transition to Valorant. It's more that FNS might have been a sprayer to begin with, and to this day maintains the habit of trusting a spray more, because it was just so consistently good in CS. Remember that there are very few active Valorant pros with a CS career as long as FNS's. TENS gives a bit more insight into why this difference even exists between the games.
I think CS is a very spray heavy game. It's a 2x2 tunnel. Imagine this is split, right? Imagine this is split and I'm sitting in the B-side box, and then I see 4 people and I try spraying them down. Okay, this in CS you actually mow them down, whereas in Valorant they have a classic and they just go, and there's 156 and 2. One guy sits right here. Oh, he 2-tapped me with the classic. Feels bad, man.
So FNS instinctually does not emphasize first shot accuracy as much as the younger players who mainly grew up on Valorant. This shooting style is simply getting less and less practical in Valorant. In CS, Scream was the one-tap god because it was uncommon to play that way at the time. But now every top player in Valorant looks like they're playing that way because it's objectively more advantageous in Valorant to prioritize first shot accuracy and flexible movement than it was in CS. FNS's spray habits are made very clear when we look at his headshot statistics over the last 3 years. FNS's headshot stats have only gotten worse since his year with Optic in 2022. Here are Boaster's stats from my last video for comparison, and you can see that he has at least improved in this regard every single year and is getting closer to the VCT average, while FNS hasn't really gotten better. A low headshot rate doesn't automatically mean you're playing bad, but when we look at the evolving VCT average, you can tell that Pro Valorant is moving towards needing higher and higher headshot accuracy to be impactful, and FNS is only falling further and further behind in this regard. Without working on this aspect of his gameplay, he's just handicapping himself and really limiting his individual playmaking potential. But to what extent does this actually affect FNS's team? Every roster with FNS has looked very solid tactically, especially on their attack sides, but this is where we can see a first hint at the type of problems FNS's playstyle and mechanics introduces. Here are the attack and defense side win rates for every FNS roster since 2022 compared with the VCT average at the time. You can see that every roster with FNS had significantly better attack sides than the VCT average, while their defense sides were about the same as the average, or in the case of last season, significantly worse. One big reason for this discrepancy is because of FNS's individual strengths and weaknesses that we talked about earlier. Being a strong weak side player on attack entails effectively gathering information, maintaining control, and challenging holes in enemy setups off the map pressure your teammates are initiating. That means for FNS to do his job well on attack, he never really needs to rely on his individual mechanics to impact the rounds positively. Instead, he can mainly rely on his intuition, do his job well, and call his team into strong positions without ever really needing to take fights himself. Here are some examples of what I mean. In this pistol round against Crew on Ascent, FNS is set up to maintain control of A by himself, while the rest of NRG works into B main. Crew calls an aggressive push into mid, and FNS feeds all the information to his team, who proceeds forward into B. Now all FNS has to do is be annoying to kill, and you can see that Crew are actively looking to punish him and can't proceed straight to retake B with FNS possibly in spawn. FNS doesn't even get a kill here and could have made it even harder for Crew to kill him, but he still accomplished his goal and did his job, setting up NRG for a strong post-plant position on B. Here's another round from NRG's match against Sentinels on Sunset. NRG starts in a default and FNS places his cam into A main. Now NRG transitions into taking mid control, while FNS moves back towards B main, and FNS can continue to maintain control of A with his cam. NRG starts to drone and clear into market, but FNS uses this pressure carefully to find his own timing in B main for a free kill, which opens up the round and sets NRG up in a great position. FNS positively impacted the game in both these attack rounds through his calling, information control, and positioning, but defense doesn't work in the exact same way. Defense simply relies more on individual skill than attack does, and this is especially true for players on the Sentinel role. Even though the rest of your team might be coordinating tactical pushes in other parts of the map, Sentinel players are usually the ones left on an island to fend for themselves. This is why the best Sentinel players in Valorant have always been efficient and disciplined with their aim, because as a weak side anchor, you only have those small windows to actually fight back. On top of that, the best Sentinel players know exactly how to put pressure on attackers all by themselves, and sometimes this can completely change the way the game is played. Someone who is so dominant like Ye in 2022 can end up scaring opponents entirely off of one side of the map. If we look back at this win rate graph from earlier, the only year that FNS had a better defense side than attack was when he had Ye on his team during the Optic days. Some more recent examples of great Sentinel players include people like Fnatic's Alpha, Meteor, who used to play on Genji and now plays on T1, or Benji Fishy from Heretics, who FNS himself has praised for being the best Cypher in the world.
You're the best Cypher in the world? Nah, that crown 100% goes to Benji Fishy. I think he is by far the best Cypher in the world right now. He does, like, balances aggression and playing passive very well. Yeah, I think he's the perfect Sentinel player, Benji.
FNS mentioned something really important in that clip, which is that Benji Fishy balances aggression and playing passive very well. This is the key to being able to pressure attackers despite being all alone on your side of the map. Not only does Benji Fishy know how to effectively weave in those aggressive rounds, he's a mechanically capable player with disciplined aim, which enables him to be confident and aggressive in the first place. FNS doesn't have those same strengths, so how does this actually affect the types of positions and setups that he's playing? Both NRG and Heretics had Sunset in their pool last season, so we'll use that map as a reference. Looking at the last 3 maps of Sunset that both NRG and Heretics played, I plotted all the death locations of FNS in blue, and then all the death locations of Benji Fishy in red. Do you notice anything different between them? You can see that Benji Fishy is making his stand in slightly more forward positions than FNS does. His death positions scatter closer towards enemy territory and are mixed in with normal passive positions that a Sentinel main would have to play anyway. In FNS's case, he's almost exclusively taking a stand on sites or even off of them in many cases. There was only one clear instance from FNS that looks like he fought deep into B main, which is this blue point here. But this death actually happened to be a team flank during an eco round, where FNS ended up dying in B main, so it really wasn't an attempt at a solo play from B main. On the other hand, this death instance from Benji Fishy in B main was actually a solo play he made which had game-winning potential. In this round against Lev, Benji Fishy is left alone to anchor B, while the rest of his team rotates towards A. Benji Fishy gets very important information that all of Lev are towards A, but instead of just waiting around on site, he recalls his trip in market, runs to take deep space in B main, and places it again at the entrance. Aspas comes back and gets caught by the trip, and Benji Fishy has a great chance to win, but loses to the Neon ult. This was basically an eco round for Heretics, and this single play succeeding would have likely won the map for them. Some people watching might think that Benji Fishy should just play the numbers here, but think about the principle behind this type of play. Benji Fishy is actively trying to create advantages by adjusting his setup on the fly and taking control of B main. He was given the only rifle on the team this round, and wants to make good use of it by purposely putting himself in a round and game-winning situation where he just needs to trust his aim. Compare this to what we saw in my last video about Boaster, who purposely gives his gun to his teammates and then puts himself on the weak side just to run away and play retake. Instead, Benji Fishy has the confidence to step up and try to win the game for his team, rather than just being a role player for the entire game. Even though this play didn't work out in the end, he's still creating B main pressure for rounds to come. Benji Fishy always looks to create advantages, whether big or small, on his side of the map, and this will force attackers to always consider using utility in B main to clear it. Compare this to how FNS passively manages B on Sunset. Many teams playing against NRG last season felt super comfortable just walking into B main, likely because they had the read that FNS was on that side of the map. They never really felt challenged when FNS was there, and were never punished for treating B main as free control, which is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why NRG had such bad defense halves on Sunset. If you play like a passive role player every single round, it just means that attackers won't have to second guess taking control on your side of the map. And FNS's below average mechanics definitely feeds into his lack of confidence, and this simply prevents him from playing those more aggressive positions that Benji Fishy does, which ends up limiting NRG's potential as a whole. Even though these issues are related to FNS's aim, I believe this is still fixable with more aim training and intentional shooting practice. However, there is another component of this issue that could be a bit harder to fix. Similar to Boaster, FNS likely spends a lot of effort calling, and although this is completely fine on attack, I think this does have negative effects on defense. As a Sentinel and weak side player, FNS needs to focus and be ready and capable of making massive plays to turn games around. He needs to be thinking about the micro adjustments he can make to his setup before and during a round, rather than spending all that time on the larger setups and adjustments moving around his players. This means that someone else on NRG needs to deeply understand when players should move, how they should move, and when risks should be taken and initiate them, while FNS focuses on adjusting micro and winning small victories on his side of the map over the course of a match. Playing defense is a much more delicate balance between macro and micro, and FNS is individually too focused on the macro side when he's playing a role that has the ability to win defense by themselves. NRG has really lacked that type of voice on defense in recent years. This worked fine during the Optic era because Ye could be self-sufficient, worrying about his micro anchoring on the weak side, while FNS could call movements and initiated playmaking. But now that FNS is the dedicated anchor and the overall skill level has increased, it's just getting harder and harder for FNS to manage both at the same time. If FNS explicitly works hard on his individual mechanics, and NRG's new pieces in Verno, Mata, and Bonkar can help improve their team's systems on defense, I think NRG has a great chance at becoming a top team in Americas again.
What do you guys think you need to work on the most going into this season?
That's easy. Defense side, bro.
Defense side?
But I think something that we're gonna have to push together as a team is our aggressiveness.
I'll just add on to the aggressiveness thing. Last year, it's definitely something we lacked. I think there wasn't a lot of playmaking, and I think that's kind of like what bringing in the people we're bringing will fix that, or at least help it a lot.
If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.